But you're going to go to church for 30 days?
I'm going to church. I'm going to church on Sunday to my home ward in Provo, Utah, with my parents. Are you
going with your parents?
I'm going with my parents, to their delight. Listen to conference talks, church music, sing hymns, make my hair blonder, fake lashes, spray tan. So, dropping by Swig now and then, stuff like that.
If you know that noontime is self-care time, purposely invite a friend over so that you have to engage with them instead of with yourself.
Great advice. Hope that doesn't end badly.
Right?
And I can still bring that into my prayer with God, because a good God would be very sorry that those things happened in his church.
That's really good. And I feel like, again, this conversation between two atheists, this is what I mean by forging new territory. I don't think this conversation has ever existed. That's going to be on the internet,
No.
Hey everybody, my name is Kara Burrell. Sometimes I go by Nuancehoe, and sometimes I go after big projects and want to take you along with me. I am embarking on a 60-day long project. 30 of those days I will be living as if I were Mormon again. I am calling it Mormonize Me. So it's a 60-day religious regression for science. I want you to kick back and grab some popcorn, and I'll explain what I'm up to. And if you haven't subscribed yet, you are in for a treat, because I'm trying to break some new ground here. I'll still be doing some of the similar things that you've seen me do before, but the content in the next couple months is going to be a little bit different. And I hope that I'm forging some new territory. I hope you guys are excited. So if you're new to my channel, you'll want to be subscribed. I also have a Substack that I think is pretty good. I've been writing for a year just to myself, and I've been putting out some articles that have had some really good feedback. So if you want to subscribe to my Substack, that would be awesome. It's different stuff about my journey out of the Mormon church, about my divorce that's over there. As always, I am looking for more donors. I'm mainly donor funded and really hoping to get a few more people to join my Patreon, my donor box, tip on Venmo, tip on YouTube. Every little bit counts, especially this January, that I will be more invested in gathering this data and putting out this future content that I'm working on. So I won't be able to see the fruits of it for a little bit until the project is done. So money will be a little tight. But this is my first episode, though, in my Mormonize Me series. I also have interviewed 4 friends. I've gathered some Avengers to help me out on this. So there's 4 friends / experts. So stay tuned to the end after I kind of explain this project to hear their perspectives on what they think about me attempting to act and think and be Mormon for the next 30 days. I have an interview with a Mormon friend of mine. I have to have different central pillars. So I have a Mormon man. I have Eric Moutsos. He's a former pal of Tim Ballard's. So that's why we're pals. I also talked to my good friend Eve, who a lot of you may know from my viral YouTube video with John DeLynn called Telling a Mormon About Joseph Smith. That has over 700,000 views. So I talked to her. And I also talked to my buddy Shaun, who is a philosophy professor. And also stick around to hear from the one and only Britt Hartley from No Nonsense Spirituality. She has been dear friend of mine and a mentor to me. So if you're interested in seeing these interviews, they're really good. Thank you for being here, and we can dive right in. So Christmas just recently passed, which activated the yearly ritual where my devoutly religious Mormon mother attempts to communicate eternal meaning through wall art, and each of her ex-Mormon children received the same present. It was a framed picture of Jesus. So my older sister immediately launched into her familiar and historically grounded explanation of Jesus as a Roman Empire fan fiction project, concluding that the picture my mom just gave her would be displayed in the trash can, which technically is still a display, because I think art should ask questions, But I had other plans for my mom's gift, though. I lit up with excitement and I said, Mom, I'm going to be Mormon next month, so this is perfect. So I'm currently enrolled in a year-long course on secular spirituality. Britt Hartley has been one of my mentors on that. It's under the direction of Jim Palmer, who's also amazing. But this year-long course on secular spirituality might sound fake, but it actually involves real homework and deadlines. And now I'm ready to launch my 2026 project for the year. And the working title is Mormonize Me. Mormonism is very good at upselling. They will be like, oh, so you believe in God? Have you ever thought about believing that you could be one too? So in the spirit of going big or going home, but not having a spiritual place to call home, I will be going big so I can then go home. Mormonize Me is a 60-day immersive performance art and documentation experiment that I've designed to observe what happens when an ex-Mormon, like myself, voluntarily does all of the things again. So 30 days as a Mormon, then 30 days substituting the Mormon for what feels like me. So the reference point that I'm going with that title is Morgan Spurlock's Supersize Me, where he eats McDonald's for 30 days. But I am just a girl, and the emotional framing feels closer to Taylor Swift. Think of it like the Eras Tour, but instead of revisiting chart-topping, lyrically impactful soundtracks that shaped a generation, I'm reviewing Words of the Prophets, looking through my old journals, and the cognitive dissonance that shaped us. So I know I'll find a few structural things and elements worth keeping, because as humans, we like rhythms, we like snacks at predictable intervals. It's what church is good for. But I know I am far happier without the theology, without the hierarchy, and the advice to tie your pajama bottoms extra tight so you don't touch yourself at night. That's a real thing that they once said to the youth. I'm really happier without all of that. Still, a set list for my second half of life doesn't feel like it can quite be written without reviewing what's already been played. So I've been in this ex-Mormon space about 5 years. This February will be my 5th anniversary since I did my first Mormon Stories interview. And I feel like a lot has been said and some new territory has yet to be explored, though. And that's kind of what I'm excited to do. I am very privileged to be able to do this. And I know it could be triggering to a lot of other people. But I've already started my project today. I started my project To Be Mormon today, and I went to church. And so please subscribe so you can hear what that was all about. But the question of whether I will be triggered definitely comes up. But what makes me willing to try this is just the fact that I'm currently living the most emotionally regulated and consistently happy version of my life so far. So it's that stability that I know didn't come from religion. It's come through growth and dark nights of the soul and all that kind of stuff that has forced me to develop healthier science-backed coping mechanisms. But the question is, will it be enough when I'm sitting in sacrament meeting, chomping down on the body of Christ when my loins cry out for a different type of snack? Just to clarify, I'm not doing this because I'm confused or I'm secretly yearning for men to tell me what to do. My love of men telling me what to do stays in my private life. This is research. This, I would say, is data. I'm inclined to say that I've been tinkering with this idea for the last 2 years-ish to embark on this, but I think the roots of this actually go much deeper than that. So my Mormon life in review, let's dive into that a little bit. The Mormon religion, or rather the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, became an untrue thing to me slowly over time. And that's not to say, though, that the CES letter and like the historicity and all of the claims of racism and homophobia, that didn't all heap on me and definitely have its moment, because it did. Entering, though, my 7th year out of the church, I look back at my entire religious and post-religious life as kind of one giant exercise in bartering, akin to Facebook Marketplace. Personally, I don't like having clutter in my home. It irritates me to no end that I have things that are taking up space that I don't use. So I'll list something like my old snowboarding boots online, and then within days, they're taken away to a new home to live a second life. And those items that took up space transformed into money that I can reinvest into other marketplaces. So the $40 that I spent on my old boots just became a limited edition Whitney Houston poster that I got off of eBay. Nothing is wasted, everything's repurposed, and meaning is transferred, not destroyed. So this is also how I think belief has worked for me as well, especially during the 7 years that I was a Jesus freak inside of Mormonism. Some of you may know this about me, you may not, but this was an integral part of what made Mormonism kind of work for me. So I was a Jesus freak. I listened to a lot of evangelical stuff while I was Mormon. Some might call that a theological hate crime, but it really was some of the happiest times of my life. And this era started when I was around 23 years old while living in Los Angeles. And at the time, I followed every Mormon rule. I paid tithing. I wore my garments. I followed the word of wisdom. And I did everything that on paper made me worthy to hold a temple recommend. But all of that just still didn't quite satisfy. I felt like I was always yearning for something deeper than predictable general conference talks and, Book of Mormon passages and culty temple ceremonies. So I devoted hours to growing a relationship with Jesus Christ, or to an idea of this type of entity. I studied the New Testament, evangelical sermons, books, music, and anything that I felt like inspired me to do better and serve better and love better. I was technically Mormon, but I was spiritually buying, selling, and bartering where I put my faith. Makes sense? So the second half of this challenge will be even more exciting because it's going to kind of follow that same internal marketplace logic where nothing gets thrown out into the trash or just declared useless out of my own spite for it, but where I consciously take each belief down from the shelf, check its resale value, and decide where it actually belongs now. It's something that I'm really excited to invest energy and devotion that I already know how to generate into a healthier way of life. So it's the same impulse of taking my old snowboarding boots and turning them into my Whitney Houston poster, except this time the currency is my attention. So I'm seeing what kind of life I can buy when I spend it on myself. So that brings me to religion and the brain. When people ask me, why do people stay in the church when it's so obviously untrue? It's a question that I'm asked almost daily. The reason my most devout Christian/Mormon years were actually quite enjoyable had very little to do with truth claims and almost everything to do with what my brain was being asked to do every day. So let me know if you kind of relate to this as well. There's sayings in Mormonism like men are that they might have joy, happiness is the object of our design, but I've come to find that neuroscience directly contradicts those Mormon teachings, that the brain that Mormon God crafted for us doesn't prioritize happiness, it prioritizes safety. And safety, neurologically speaking, comes from predictability, comes from structure and repetition and having clear feedback loops, right? So men are that they might have a lot of things that you might find in Mormonism. Joy is hit or miss. There was a time when I was 19 years old and I worked at a children's summer camp in Massachusetts, and I dabbled in the types of developmentally appropriate activities that upon my arrival back home in Utah, my mom was unable to control me. It was a ball. It was fun. However, my mom's happiness, that's going to be found in living the gospel principles, the conservative, homophobic, boring principles. Me and mom, we're just not the same. For better or for worse, the improv comedian in me thrives off of a challenge. As Drew Carey taught us, everything is made up and the points don't matter. So while I was away from the watchful eye of my mother, what looked like to her was just rebellion. That is just surface level. I think it was really my nervous system testing how much novelty and how much challenge I could survive without losing my footing. And I think that is the same type of challenge I seek to embark on now. So my summer of drunken bisexual escapades made me lose my grip. And instead of moving out of Utah when I got home and gaining my independence, I did what was expected of me, That's the feedback loop. That's the predictability. And I repented to my bishop and got married in the temple. Now, I know you're worried about me, but fear not, the church didn't kill all of my creativity. What were we doing that caused us to walk into our wedding reception fashionably late? I told you that I like performance art. So let me put it this way. The scene, driving away from the temple after getting married. The character, 19-year-old Mormon virgin. The director, Jackson Pollock. And we improv'd. So Mormonism is a type of all-in religion. It's a type of system that I married my spouse. I blessed my 3 kids. I gave 10% of my income to and chose my underwear within, right? So it gave me all of that, but it also gave me nervous system regulation, albeit externally outsourced. So everything from waking up to pray, obey, repent, recommit, and be better tomorrow. All of that is just coherence. Coherence is the name of the game. And back then, I knew I was a daughter of God. I knew what was expected of me, and I knew how to repair when I fell short. But for me, even while believing Mormonism was true, I had to supplement it with evangelical Christianity. It was like asking the teacher for extra homework. And I think that just as kind of always said about me that I'd rather be a little fish in a big pond and not the other way around. So am I angry that I was raised religious? No. For me, I think it's a gift to be able to view things from the lens that I find myself in. I think we're just creatures of evolution, and we've adapted. The first fish who ventured out of the water to walk on land would someday have descendants who could not only breathe freely, but built entire systems of meaning and mental regulation to buffer the instincts to drown themselves when existence became too much. Pretty cool. So to be mad at my parents, for example, for converting to Mormonism would mean that I'm mad at giraffes for growing longer necks to reach higher branches. And myself being 5'11" and part giraffe, of course, I understand, doesn't mean you shouldn't look down at who you're crushing as you follow evolution's path for your species, you know. But during my Jesus freak years, I accidentally optimized my dopamine system. Some people think that dopamine is released when you arrive at your intended goal, but super important to note that it's actually released in the pursuit. So every prayer, every act of obedience, every attempt to be better tomorrow fed my brain a steady high of purpose-linked pursuit. But, you know, in Mormonism system itself, there's so little excitement in the stale talks from old white men. But when I immersed myself in the New Testament and in the version of Christ that felt personally inconvenient, something electric happened instead. And that's the Jesus freak phase I talk about. That Jesus kept interrupting me midlife, like, hey, are you just a fan of me, or are you actually going to take up your cross and do hard things? I was constantly exercising what's called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. And that's the part of the brain that's associated with willpower and effort and the capacity to do hard things, right? So my religious life was essentially a resistance training program for my nervous system. So in the height of my Jesus freakdom, I befriended a woman in my Santa Monica ward who didn't have a car and needed to be driven downtown on occasion to pick up food from the bishop's storehouse. And, you know, she was cool, but she was quirky. And my inner thoughts of like irritation and discomfort really dissipated as I testified to myself that this is what being a follower of Christ meant. And when I miscarried my first child, I trusted God's plan and I kept on nannying. I had limitless stories like this from my religious life, and you probably do too, where you override your preferences, you surrender your boundaries and do the inconvenient, annoying thing and just want to put in, sometimes do the very traumatizing thing, right? So for me though, what I was actually doing without knowing it was resistance training for self-trust and long-term resilience. And it was something that I labeled a testimony, but neurologically it was just discipline. It was just strengthening the brain's region that helps humans endure discomfort without collapsing into despair and into scrolling. So that's kind of been a central theme of my life in the last couple of years since finding my own internal ways of nervous system regulation. And whether you're religious or non-religious, it is looking at discomfort and being able to sit in it. As I study religions and corporations and narcissists who all thrive on this type of buff, robotic self-erasure. It's necessary to like work out this part of the brain to survive, but for who is the question. I've been out of the church about 7 years. I've been a content creator for 5 of it. Where do we go from here? I'll say that years later, after realizing Mormonism was made up, I took the same tools I used to see through the lies of my church, and I deconstructed God. And that part was devastating. I know I'm not alone there. Ex-Mormons often get stuck trying to untangle the lies of, what we were taught from the happiness we might have experienced while living inside of those lies. It's like finding out that your emotional support bridge was structurally unsound, but it still was something that carried you across a canyon. And as an ex-Mormon content creator, I've been begging the powers that be to frickin' pass an infrastructure bill already. They still haven't. Anyway, neurological training kind of sits at the center of this whole project. What I'm calling Mormonize Me is built around curiosity and also being able to transfer things. So looking back, I obviously see no proof of like a one central divine truth kind of thing, but I just see proof that human brains thrive when they're engaged in what they value and the stories that they tell. And human brains thrive off of discipline and creativity and repetition, community, and a life that asks something of them. So with 60 days to see what plan I can make from this mess, I do believe that I'm up to the task. So this project will be documented through video and journaling without really like a planned narrative, while I'm just going to be blending some memoir, some critique, some performance art in a way that I think will be entertaining and also useful to the community. The post-religious content space is my home, but it's grown a little stale. I can't tell if we're cold or bored, so either way, throw another jester on the fire. I think we're simple creatures. Monkey see, monkey do. No matter how many brilliant books are written about secular spirituality, for example, people don't always know how to apply it. So Britt Hartley has given us the book No Nonsense Spirituality, and I cannot emphasize enough how much I wish that book came with pictures or at least a closed circuit camera into the Hartley home so that people like me with limited imaginations could understand the applications of secular spiritual concepts. But with Britt's privacy intact and mine up for grabs, the dumber people of Earth demand a reality show. So where theory teaches, lived example persuades. And my goal is to take abstract ideas about meaning and ritual and awe after religion and translate them, transfer them into a tangible case study that people can watch and laugh at and maybe even imitate. Most secular spiritual content, leans very academic, completely wiping out vast portions of the dumb population. The Mormonize Me title is satirical, obviously, but the experiment that I'll be doing is no joke. I'll be abstaining from sex, drugs, alcohol, abstaining from everything that you can think of. Following the word of wisdom, attending church on Sunday, dressing modestly. Obviously I'll be dyeing my hair more blonde, getting a fake tan and doing my eyelashes, stopping by Swig. So some of the aesthetic stuff, but also stuff that is going to take a lot of that discipline that I hope to then kind of in a one-to-one transfer in my following 30 days, look at what actually spiritually resonates to me and fill the Mormon parts with the me parts. But still keeping that discipline and still keeping those rhythms. And I think it'll be fun to show how we can laugh and bond over the absurdities of our past and also be serious and sincere as I'm going to be diving into things that I still hold value in as a mom of 3 kids, So this experiment right now, it's about me. It's going to be embarrassing. I'm going to be rolling out of bed, no makeup, just like disheveled, showing you me getting on my knees and praying to an amalgamation of healthy masculine figures. So while it's about me right now, I hope it doesn't stay about me. I'm using my own life as a demo to see whether, the scaffolding that you can build inside of religion can be taken apart and reassembled into something usable by people who don't want God, but still want structure and ritual and awe. And those are the things that I'll be investigating, because we know those are not proprietary concepts that are owned by religion. So what's stopping us from reclaiming these human tools and asking, what happens when we put them back into circulation with intention, religiously, but not religious-y, if you catch my drift. So in the second phase, I'll be keeping what serves me, just kind of what rocks my world. I'll be keeping the same flow from morning to night as a Mormon woman, but fill the space with sources that are meaningful to me as a non-religious person. And I hate to give away the ending, but I've already envisioned it all now. What's that scripture I'm reading every night before I go to bed? Is it the Book of Mormon? No. It's my favorite secular spirituality book that gives me nuggets of wisdom to chew on throughout the next day. Who's that casserole going to? Not a random board member assigned by geography, but a friend in need chosen by love. And who also subs to my Patreon. What's that song I'm listening to? Is it David Archuleta? Well, actually, yes. Yes, it is. January 4th, 2026. Today, the Mormonizing begins. But before embarking, I recorded some interviews. So these are interviews with friends, mentors, just smarty pantses, good thinkers who know my history with Mormonism, kind of know my blind spots, and bring some really great insights. And I'm going to let you hear those conversations now. So just based on reading my Substack article and talking about this project, just off the top of your head, kind of what were your impressions?
Yeah, my overall takeaway, because it's been now a couple days since I've read it, and so now I'm left with like the feeling of reading it versus remembering exactly what was said, is just a sense of awe for how much healing that you've done to be able to step back into the space with curiosity. And I think I told you this, and if I didn't, then I'll just say it publicly here, that that the amount of growth that you've undertaken, because when we leave Mormonism, we're like a newborn baby. We just know nothing about anything. We really don't know anything. And not only do we not know anything, but then we're left with, it's not even a blank slate, because we're left with a lot of anger and betrayal and hurt and confusion, all these things. And so, just the rate at which you were able to move through that. And I do think that journaling, therapy was a part of it, mushrooms was a part of it, friends was a part of it, education is a part of it, but also just journaling every day through that. Because in my experience, to go from leaving the church to being able to even step foot in a Mormon church usually is like a 10-year circle. I don't see people do that, within a decade, where you can walk into a Mormon church and appreciate it for what it is, and not be so triggered that you're having a panic attack or things like that. Mostly I see that takes a good decade. And so I just wanted to validate just how much growth it took for you to not become because you had an opportunity that others don't, where you could have kept making money and having some kind of notoriety and a lot of approval from the ex-Mormon community to just talk shit about Mormonism forever. And you really could have done that. And a lot of people get stuck there, but you could have actually continued to forever milk that cow, essentially, because we all in the ex-Mormon community appreciated your candor and your humor and your fire and your pushback and your vulnerability. And we could have just done that train for so long. Mm-hmm. And so I just was in awe of how you, even though the ex-Mormon community, almost would have pushed you to stay in that place, but for you to just go back and with curiosity and with grace and with understanding and bridge building to just walk in and say, I just want to walk into this space again and experience it again. Just to me, I just was in awe of how much growth you've done just in the past couple years, especially.
Well, thank you. Trictia, I also am going to have a restart button where I actually just don't have anything to say anymore, and I've exhausted my brain, and so now I actually do have to go back to church to reignite the flame of hatred. I love this space, but I love combining the stuff that you talk about and what I want to do in the future. And I just feel like I need to go back to basics and start at just completely level one as much as I can, have it under this facade.
Yeah, that's very like Buddhist beginner's mind. And I really love that. And it takes a lot of healing. It takes a lot of healing to go back there, because Mormonism wanted you to be this. But I also like want to call out that like ex-Mormonism also had some pressure on you to be something that it wanted to. And there have been times where you've had to push back on that also. And that's, to me, is harder. Like, it's always harder to call out your own camp, than it is to call out, the camp that you've left or that you're no longer a part of. And so to me, that was just reading through that, and just watching you, especially in the past year, really follow your heart and your values rather than there was a little maybe ex-Mormon pressure for you to do something else because we just so loved it. And yeah, there's just a lot of authenticity that I can see, and it's just been an honor to see your journey. And I'm so excited for this next little chapter.
Yeah. Well, I owe most of the if I had neural connections that were one way and then it was like swap, move them over to a new one that I'm in right now that's healthier, it was Britt Hartley going clink, 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 and rearranging the circuit board of my brain. So it's very much due to your content and your book and your friendship. So it's the way that your brain works that's helped my brain work better. And especially I want people to live happy, healthy lives and reduce harm to other people, to the planet, and animals. And obviously I can't be in Mormonism because that does not align with myself or that goal. And I want my ex-Mormon content and also just personal lifestyle to reflect that as well. And, you are what you think about, you are what you read, you are what you do, what you participate in. And for as much as it's fun to make jokes and deconstruct the historicity of this and that, I love that aspect of it. But in my day-to-day life, I have 3 neurospicy kids. I just have so much of an actual life to live that depends so much about what I am thinking about, what I am doing with my free time. And I can't quite separate those two things. You know what I mean? So hoping with this project, what I get out of it is something that I help will really help me in my spiritual direction certification and becoming a director and taking on clients and things like that for the next years and 20 years. But then the content piece of it as well, I think will be really interesting of what I edit together and what my thoughts are, what my analysis are. And then just kind of the data that I gather from what I'm doing and what I'll be journaling and putting together. It's kind of a threefold piece in that way. But mostly I'm usually kind of the type of person who wants to leave the 99 and go for the 1 of really, I think that's what your content and your, you have a great ability to do is separate the religion from the utility and talking about the aspects of what does atheism do right? What does it do? What can it work on? Similar with spirituality and stuff like that. And so I want to be able to handle that complexity, and people who still have interest in those spaces it's not going to be the most popular thing in the world, but it has a strong utility for the right person. So it might be just a handful of people who resonate with it, but I would rather do that with my my work, my goals, my free time, all of my mind and energy, than do something that does have like mass appeal that's kind of already been done. That's what I kind of feel like I'm embarking on. I feel like I'm embarking on something that just hasn't been done yet. And that's very exciting as well. I hope that that part will be a mass appeal, but even if it's not, like I'm making something that I know I would want to watch and I would want to investigate, and I would want to hear what the experience was, what the analysis was. So.
Yeah. It really is kind of blowing up, like I was talking about earlier with Mormonism or ex-Mormonism, or on online spaces where it's very atheist versus religious, that if you're going down to the utility of it and real people's lives, like you talked about, like just being a mother, like I have real people's lives where the best school in the area for their children, for the needs that they have is the local Catholic school. And what do I do about it? Right. Or something like that. And this kind of black and white, you know, clickbait kind of online stuff doesn't actually meet people where they are, where people may want to, like me, choose to go to church on Sunday. And I got pushback for that. And I told people on my Instagram that me showing up for someone that I care about is also authentic too, right? You know, that's authenticity too. So I love the complexity of you being able to say, I want to be able to meet people with various religious elements that they still have in their life that they want for whatever reason, and just trying to help them make that as healthy as possible. And certainly I've tried to do that, and I fail sometimes, and we're always going to be spicy sometimes about some things, but there is something there that I think speaks to people that people need, that, you know, they may feel shame in their religion for not being dogmatic enough, but shame in atheist communities for going to church on Christmas Sunday or whatever it is. And I just don't think that we need to, that's just not meeting people in their real lives.
I asked this question to Eric Moutsos, who's Mormon, and I don't know if you'll have an answer, but I'll try this one on you. After these 30 days of living as a Mormon, what do you think that I might come away with finding out that I was wrong about?
I don't foresee you coming away, like, my guess is that you're not going to come away saying I was just completely 100% wrong about this. I think you'll be more surprised. I think you're anticipating I think you're anticipating well what's going to happen. But I think it'll just surprise you, like how much that meant to you, or how much, or how good that feeling did feel, or, you know, like those things. So I'm going to guess that you're not going to feel like you were 100% wrong on something. I'm going to guess you're just going to be surprised at the strength of some of these feelings going back there in full, you know, earnestness.
Tell me the analogy you said about falling in love.
Yeah. So an analogy would be like, let's say you and I spent the last 5 years on a podcast talking about like what happened.
I thought you were going to say last 5 years falling in love.
But yeah, like if we spent the last 5 years talking about what happens at the level of the brain when you're in love, and the dopamine, and we're reading papers about it and all of that. And we really do understand at such a deeper level, like what love is and what's, you know, like the timeline of it and everything. And then like, but it is different. And we may like forget what it's like that first month when you're in love with someone, and like your phone dings and you just get like the biggest drug dopamine hit to your body, and you've forgotten what that felt like. My guess is it's going to be like that. Like I've been talking about love for so long, but I forgot how powerful these feelings were. That's my guess.
I like it. That's really interesting. There are some moral conundrums that I'm facing, which I can put a pin in. But the first one that comes to mind, I have a list of about 30 things that I wrote down of what it's going to take to be a Mormon. And the very first thing I put was, I'm going to be rolling out of bed, getting on my knees, and saying my prayers. And my whole entire list, not much of it triggers me. I can do it. I can read the Book of Mormon. It'll be boring. I can do strolling around the temple. I can attend church easier than I can pray to a Mormon Heavenly Father man figure. And you're the one who ruined that for me because of your Thrive speech about how the feminine has been taken out of spirituality. That is the one that got, 5-minute standing ovation that changed everyone's lives, including mine. Because obviously I've been on a deconstruction from the patriarchy journey since I left the church 7 years ago. But the idea of kind of going, even role playing, that I am directing any thoughts towards a central figure that is a man, cringes me out to no end. And
Yeah,
you did
that
this
is
to me.
cringy.
You did this.
All right. I got to come up with a solution here since I'm part of the problem of why this is so cringy. Cause yeah, that would be hard. That would be hard for me too.
I see it from the perspective of like, the reason Mormonism exists is a coalition with a lot of negative bad forces with like the evangelical right and so many patriarchal forces that have sought to keep women like me in their place by directing my thought and approval to a man. To even do that for a second makes me want to flip a table. It makes me completely want to do an 180 and quit the entire thing. Like that's how repulsed I am by that idea, because I just feel like I know where it came from and I know what was stolen from me. And it's hard to just think of an effervescent, loving figure that happens to be male. I'm just like, no, fuck that guy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. I see the problem. I think how I would do this if it were me is I don't think I could gaslight myself enough to pray to the douchebag god of MAGA and Mormonism too and all of that. Like you just can't, like we're doing this as an experiment and we're leaning into it, but like there's too much there. Like there's too much there to just gaslight around. So what I would do is I would imagine something like, there's a couple men I have in my life, a handful, that like if it would be this guy or the bear, I would choose this guy. Like there's a couple good ones, right? There's some good ones where they are so apologetic and they understand that that they're not offended by like a woman crossing on the other side of the street because other men have done that. They're not offended by that, right? Like they understand what men have done and they're just apologetic and they're the good guys and they're just there to help and they're great, right? So I kind of imagine approaching God as if, like if I was really doing this, as if it really is a good guy who understands that men have done things with his name that are terrible, that he wouldn't approve of. And that the thing that I could do with Mormonism is that women in Mormonism had more rights and powers under Joseph Smith than they do now 200 years later. So at the very least, we have a doctrinal loophole here that the God that Joseph interacted with, let's give him the benefit of the doubt this week, right? Was a God who wanted more powers for women and wanted more for women than we currently have 200 years ago, and that men fucked it up. And so you'd have to then believe that God then wanted more for women. So maybe we could believe that there's a Keanu Reeves in the sky whoever that guy is for you, a Keanu Reeves in the sky who is not offended that you're mad at men, not offended that you're mad at Mormonism and what they did to women, because he would understand like they did something here that was harmful. Like Keanu Reeves wouldn't be offended that if I went into a man-hating speech, right? Like in my mind, he'd be like, yeah, men are the worst, So I think maybe we could approach it that way, that the God of Joseph wanted more for women, and we have proof of that. And so I can bring my dissatisfaction of what men do in the church that is, dishonoring their priesthood, and I can still bring that into my prayer with God, because a good God would be very sorry that those things happened in his church.
That's really good. And I feel like, again, this conversation between two atheists, this is what I mean by like forging new territory. Like, I don't think this conversation has ever existed. That's going to be on the internet, you know?
No,
Like,
there are very few
possibly wrap my
atheists
brain
that I
around
can
it?
have these kinds of conversations with. Even in atheist circles, it's hard to have these kinds of conversations where you even talk about the utility of religion or giving religion its fair credit or whatever.
Yeah. So I like that idea a lot. I think what I'll have to do is, think of the best aspects of if I were to craft a god that is neither male nor female, but that happens to be called Heavenly Father. So I will have to say those words. I do feel I have to pray in a real Mormon way. But in my mind, the Heavenly Father I'm talking to has all of these qualities that, like, amongst the stuff that you just named. So I have to get intentional about kind of journaling or whatever of thinking about what that kind of God is. Because, like I said previous, it's so tied to what I know of this manufactured deity that has been out to strip women of rights and minorities of rights and stuff. And I'm like, it's really hard to decouple those. But if I can kind of reinvent it with the best aspect.
Yeah, because if we're being honest, like the God that every person is praying to in a Mormon ward, we're using Heavenly Father, fine. Like, we're all saying that language, but like, they are a little bit different when you talk to people, you know, like it's my God is the one who demands obedience, and my God is the one who's like so compassionate and whatever. So like, that does give us a little room to say, like, I'm imagining a benevolent God who is very sad at what men did in Mormonism, because he very clearly, even under Joseph, wanted women to have more than we have 200 years later.
You and I have so many similar beliefs. So if you were put in my shoes and, let's say, at the end of this experiment, I'm hoping one of my lists of one of the things to do is I want to be able to bear my testimony publicly in church in a way that is clear that I'm not a member anymore. I'm not a believer. I'm not going to say the church is true. But do you think there's a way that I could bear my testimony of something that wouldn't offend people, that would, you know, give a message, bear a testimony of something to do with the church, end it in the name of Jesus Christ, amen, and everyone walks away happy? Do you think I can get there?
Yeah, I do think so. My advice for that my last testimony that I ever gave, there's a scripture in D&C where it says, it's talking about spiritual gifts, and it says, to some it is given to know, and to some it is given to believe. And so I went up there and I said, I read the scripture and I said, I don't have the gift of knowledge. I don't know if this church is true. I don't even know if there is a God, but I believe that me coming here makes me a better person, or I believe that me coming here today reminds me to be more like Jesus. And that was something where, like, I was honest, I was vulnerable. I said on the pulpit, I don't believe in God. I don't have this spiritual gift that some of you have, this gift of knowledge. But here are things that I hope for, or here are things that I believe that I can say. And saying something like that, where you're doing something scriptural or something there, can just like calm everybody down a little bit so that they can meet your vulnerability. And I guarantee you that if you're vulnerable in that way about your beliefs, like, there's so many people in that ward that are there because they hope for things, but they've lost beliefs in certain things too. And they'll find you in the hallways, and it'll be a beautiful experience, and I can't wait to hear about it. But my advice is to try to find some bridge there so that you don't you don't trigger things the other way, where they start to feel that you're an unsafe person, and then you can't be vulnerable together. But if you can do a little bridge building in there, especially at the beginning, and then go into your vulnerability, I think people will meet your vulnerability with their vulnerability, and then it's a beautiful moment. It's absolutely beautiful. And I think you already know that, and you would do it that way, but that would be my advice, is to make sure you have that little bridge building piece so that people's walls don't go up.
Right. I love that. And I love that last testimony that you gave. If I were to bear my testimony, I will have to figure out how to get to the first Sunday in February, because I think I'm going to be up in Idaho with you, if that works out.
Yeah.
Over that weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. But I would love to do that at the first Sunday of February. And still I don't know, kind of be in that vibration, that resonance of just care, concern, that what your testimony of Jesus Christ means to you might mean that you have to vote MAGA, or you have to hate this person, whatever. But for this ward building, what it gave to me then and what it's given me this last month, it has been a sense of care, concern, community. Yeah. And that inspires me to take that and find that in my own, my own areas of my life. It might not be this, but this is a really good model of it.
And Jesus is my go-to when I'm trying to do some bridge building. Even like when some people who I can tell like their wall is really up, if they ask me what I do, I'll talk about how I spent my career studying the Bible and Jesus. And now I help people who have been spiritually wounded on the side of the road because I'm really inspired by the Good Samaritan story. And so I help people maintain their spirituality when they've been hurt by religion or whatever. And you'd be shocked at how many religious people are just like, can meet that because of that language versus me saying like, religion is the foundation of all evil and you're stupid for being in a cult. That just doesn't get you very, very far.
Yeah. I love that. I'm gonna have to remember that one.
Let's do our weekend the week after, because I want that to happen. I think it's an integral part. I think you do have to stand up. I think we need to make it in there. And my February is open, so let's get together the weekend after, because I want that to happen. I do.
Okay. All right. I told you my birthday's on the 10th. And I kind of just wanted to do that around my birthday as just a fun getaway to go hang out with Britt and go do some, will you do some mushrooms or something, or drop acid with me then?
I've never dropped acid.
What?
I've only done the mushrooms because acid
is the best. Oh,
everybody was like, for depression, mushrooms are your go-to. And I'm like, all right. So I just do that.
Oh man. Me and Kyle love acid. It's the gentle version of mushrooms. You're just laughing and the visuals are great. You go on a walk and just, my favorite personality comes out when I am on acid. I am genuinely the funniest because, sometimes drugs can inflate your ego, but I genuinely mean I'm the funniest. My friends are the funniest. And it actually is one of the best ways to have a really good time, but it lasts for like 9 hours. So, so consider that birthday gift to me. So,
okay, I will think about it. Actually, I've had MDMA on my list more, especially with like the recent autism diagnosis to help kind of open up the heart a little bit.
And you haven't done it yet?
Nope, I've only done mushrooms. For mushrooms, I always have a bad trip. It's always like a hard day for me, but then I get 9 months of depression-free symptoms. And so I do it anyway because like
that's worth it.
The tank is great for the next 9 months for me.
Yeah. The last time I did mushrooms, that was the time that I felt like I could see the matrix that we were in. Can I tell you what I saw?
Yeah.
Okay, this is what I felt. This is where I truly feel like I went from being a no free will type of atheist to like, I have free will and I'm not an atheist. I don't know what it is. That kind of switch happened on my mushroom trip.
That's very common.
And I felt like I could see all of us as humans in our own cubicles, that everyone is in a cubicle. And the mushrooms just took me to a higher perspective where I could see down on the cubicles of life. So I'm sober right now. Everything is in its tactile, normal form. You are you, I am me. On the mushrooms, all of the cubicles collapsed and just to one giant kind of shared consciousness. And that here's the clincher. I don't know if this is true, but this is kind of how I've lived. So when people talk about like mushrooms curing like depression symptoms, it's truly because I've lived by this narrative over the last year or so that has made me so non-depressed. And it's one of those like the utility of something, whether it's true or not, if it's helpful, has changed my brain chemistry. Because I feel like I saw this like as if it was a, lightning strike Mormon testimony kind of thing of like, this is my soul now. So it was, I felt like I saw everything that's in our normal manifestation of our bodies, our separateness, are all just real how do I put this? Dense, you know, 3-dimensional vibrations of ego. And that similar to the way that, like, this is what I was telling, this is what I felt on my mushroom trip. I felt like a billionaire who had no problem with money whatsoever, but I voluntarily took myself to like Mount Everest to do something challenging to see if I could do it. And that my embodiment as Kara Burrell is the like spiritual manifestation of a being that if it knew it could do anything, it would be limitless. But I have voluntarily put myself in the confines like a billionaire trekking up Mount Everest. And that if I can just remember that my potential is infinite, but I have voluntarily confined myself to this, then my challenges don't seem so challenging anymore. And that this actual like world right here only exists because we've all agreed to have egos. We've all agreed to feel separate. But if we, like on a mushroom trip, when you're just, that ego is really dissolved, like you can't really play a game with no rules. And so it's like, that's this earth life is like this consciousness I'm in is putting up the, what's the word I just said? Cubicles. Mm-hmm. To separate us in an office space of humanity. Mm. And that's the words I can use. But obviously when something's on mushrooms and you're just feeling things and seeing things, it's kind of hard to like put into words. But that's like what just had wave after wave over me for a couple hours. Mm-hmm. And then when I came out of it, I've just never really been the same. And I feel very much like my potential, my ability to do things is infinite. And I only limit myself when I am in a like highly egoic state or highly emotionally reactive state, but that's not really my true nature. That's none of our true nature. Our true nature is a dissolved ego and to, what's the word? Commingle and to work together. Mm-hmm.
It's very Buddhist. It's a very Buddhist concept. This is what, like anything that you do on mushrooms, the Buddhists have been doing for thousands of years, just with their own minds. But it's a very Buddhist idea that we are one and that ego separates us and that you can drop back into that space at any time. And then you're happy and you're free and you have everything that you need and you have need of nothing. And suffering is just this ego that just wants stuff. And why does it want stuff? It's forgotten and it's breaking through these illusions. And it's very Buddhist. In fact, when you're talking about wanting to find something like a church, 1030, there's a Sangha in Salt Lake that I really like where you practice this with other people in a Buddhist context that I think you would actually really like. What would it be like for you? Because a testimony, there was a Sangha in Salt Lake that I went to where the testimony meeting was everybody stands up and says something that they feel like is true or meaningful or something on their heart. And you do this meditation where you just entirely focus on that person as if they're you, as if they're part of the universe that you are part of. But it's expressing in this person across from you. And so you actually practice kind of dropping into that space where their joys are your joys and their problems are your problems and their sorrows are your sorrows. And you do this with each person who says something. And then it's not really going into a space where it's the whole world, although you can, but it's going into the space where you actually are practicing together that you are all one thing in this room that have forgotten and have these little names and for each other, whatever. And so you practice that. And it's a very cool experience with other people who want to do that, with others that I think you would actually really enjoy.
Man, I'm going to have to pick your brain more of that would be that's fascinating. I love humans. We're so creative. Look at us spending our free time.
We are at least interesting. You can at least say that about us.
Crazy. I love that. Love that. So fascinating. So I think what you just said, I could do that in a Mormon chapel. I bet that'll kind of be my challenge is everything you kind of just said, looking around at the environment and the people that I'm in.
Yeah. My way that I get there in a Mormon chapel is, what is this person really saying? And I just keep asking that question until I find something human that I can relate to. And then it's very connective. So what is this person really saying? And when I get down to it at the end of that in testimony meeting, it's usually I'm scared. Is usually like what they're saying. If I keep asking the question, what are they really saying? Because they'll say like, I look out in the world in this and I'm so blessed to this or whatever. Like if I keep asking the question, what are they really saying here? They're saying when they look out into the world that they're scared. That's scared. And I'm like, oh, true, yeah. I'm scared too. It's scary. Yeah. It's a scary part of the universe.
And here's your coping mechanism for it all, right?
I can understand that. So I can understand that. That's human. So yeah, that's my, like, I've developed lots of like shortcuts into places that I want to be, like that mushroom place that you were talking about. And like, how do I shortcut into that place? And so what are they really saying is my shortcut into seeing a person as we're part of something here. You're like me. But I have to ask myself that question or else I get distracted by the bullshit that they're saying.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love that. Thank you, Britt. You are the author of No Nonsense Spirituality, a book that I took with me and read it probably twice through, once through audio and once physically. I took it on this mushroom trip in an RV that I spoke of in one of my Substacks about the hardest part of my divorce. And I was in that stage of like really wanting to have a different type of deconstruction that book kind of offers, and reconstruction, obviously. And so from then till now, a lot of thoughts going through my mind. So thanks for chatting with me on this.
Yeah, of course.
This is the important crux of the entire stuff I've been planning and thinking about for a couple months. I am embarking on a path to really live as a Mormon person for the next 30 days. Doing all the rituals, doing all the things. From your perspective, are there things that outsiders, whether ex-Mormons or outsiders generally, underestimate about the utility of Mormonism and kind of all that I will be subjecting myself to?
Yeah, I was thinking about your project and this goal. I've done something similar where for Lent, I did theism for Lent and my friend did atheism for Lent, but I've never fully gone into being a Mormon for 30 days. So I was thinking about you today and this project. And I think the thing that people underestimate from the outside is the thought stopping cliches and how it simplifies life. And so I guess my challenge to you for going back into Mormonism is every time your brain starts to go, oh, this is just a bias, or this is my brain doing this, or whatever, because like you know so much more now. You've been on a long journey since Mormonism and learned so much about the brain and human nature that essentially you're going to have to shut those things down again and do like it's not enough, I think, to just like walk back into a church, because you can walk back into a church and just be psychoanalyzing everything as if you're an outsider. But to do it as an insider, you're going to have to go back to those thought ending cliches to actually sit in it as a Mormon, which is like, you know, you're going to have to go back to those thoughts of just like, oh, that's Satan tempting me. I need to get back into being faithful here. And life is a test, or those little thoughts that you used to have. And you're going to have to like think those thoughts on purpose again to shut down all the other things that your brain is going to be doing in church. Did you have like a go-to? Can you remember some of the thoughts that you used that would like doubt your doubts or shut down some of your doubts? Mm-hmm. Or was that going on so subconsciously you can't quite remember what those were?
Oh yeah, I remember them like they were yesterday because I'm still working on them. Oh, codependence, patriarchy. So definitely I can think of myself. I'm actually going on Sunday to my parents' home ward in Provo, which is a pretty easy entrance into this system I will be asking of myself. But I can still remember myself in that same building, sitting in the pews, And if something didn't make sense, my immediate way to shut it down is somebody smarter than me has figured this out. And that concentrating on the feeling of what I'm feeling right now, that's good. And I look around at my friends in the ward and everything that's in my environment that did genuinely make me happy and felt like it kept me safe is what I could see in front of me. And those questions are so easily put on the back of your mind and on your shelf because of what you're living, what you're embodying, what your environment is reinforcing to you. So it's always been pretty easy to shut down those when I was LDS for that reason. So whether somebody else is smarter than me, but you're right, I have done a lot of deconstruction, and the thing I will be focusing on is how I can not analyze as I'm going into this, because the content creator part of my brain will has so much that it wants to say, that so much it would want to be like that, like, oh, they don't know that, and what about that, but to really shut all of that down and just be able to focus on, I think, the human aspect of like starting off at church, looking around at all of these people and what are they getting out of this that I can also get out of that without my brain needing to go in circles and figure something out. And it is probably the simplest things of, if I was a new investigator into the church, I would be looking around and I would be feeling that elevated emotion, and I would be excited to be singing hymns and just be around people, because the church does offer what is it? Third space. Second spaces that is very difficult to find. So then when I am going to be doing my 30-day kind of reconstruction, I want to actually find somewhere to go and find a place to get those same feelings and be around people for 2 hours at 10:30 a.m. every Sunday, and see if I can extremely intentionally find a one-to-one replacement for that thing. And so I have to start, though, with what can I actually get out of this, and what is everyone else getting out of it?
Yeah. So I had 3 things that came up for me as you were talking. One is like, when I remember one thought ending cliche that kept me in for a long time was, regardless of what is true about God and how much God may be even working in other religions, because I started to have those thoughts because we're just such a small religion, you can't help that thought. I had this thought of like, God called me here, that like God wanted me here with this people, with this religious tradition. And that just like, that was one that just shut down a lot for me of like, regardless of what is true, God's called me here with this people. And that would just like shut it down for me. Just shut it down.
I love this. 2 atheists talking together of what are the best thought stopping cliches that I can employ this weekend.
Yeah. The tables have turned here. But I remember when I was in, I think it was more when I was in a mixed faith marriage and I was out, but my husband was still in. And my favorite ward in the whole world is this ward in Maui, and it's a Tongan ward. And I go every time that I go to Maui, which isn't very often, but when I go there, even as an atheist, I would go there because they do it in Tongan, which removes, like you said, like the intellectual aspect and the content creator aspect of like, what are they saying? And I just would sit in there, and because they're also Tongan, it's much more warm. They sing much, much better than us white, Utah Mormons do. And, I would just sit there, and I would just be filled with this sense of like, humans are so beautiful. Like, look at these people. They're just telling each other stories and inspiring each other and sharing with each other and making each other casseroles when they're sick and hugging each other. And I actually would go away from that ward, even with all of my religious trauma, feeling so uplifted, but it's because it was in another language and it shut off my intellectual brain. Right. And I still really love that ward. But when I went back on Sunday, or 2 Sundays ago for Christmas, I went with my family to Christmas, and it was not in Tongan, it was in English. And the speaker, I shit you not, the speaker was talking about, like, the talk was about what it must have been like to be Angel Gabriel, because this was Noah, which is like it's a little bit more of a niche Mormon doctrine that Gabriel is Noah. And so it went into this like wild, like like Noah, and then his perspective as Noah, and then how that would have felt as Angel Gabriel. It's a very niche Mormon doctrine. I've not heard it in a long time. It's something that Joseph Smith talked about. And my intellectual brain was just like freaking out at this talk of like this incredibly niche Mormon doctrine that I just missed. Like, I know looking back as you were talking, like I missed the emotional aspect of just gathering for Christmas with your family and singing these songs that people have been singing for hundreds of years. And there's something beautiful about that and human about that. I completely missed it because I was so intellectually distracted by this wild niche Mormon doctrine. So it is hard. It's hard. It's easier for me when it's not in English.
Yeah, that would be a great loophole. I wish I could do some kind of drug. It would be great if I was like on an edible or ketamine or something.
But Mormons don't do that, so we can't do that. That's breaking the rules.
Yeah, so I can't do any loopholes like that. But
wait, are we? Is it going to be? It's going to be Fast Sunday.
Yeah.
So you're going to be like, the most cheating that you can do is just like guiltily eating before church. Like that's kind of common. You could do that.
Yeah, which I won't.
Okay, we're going to do it.
My first meal is usually at friggin' 5 p.m. already.
Okay.
My Mormonism for the next month, I think, will actually be more healthy because I'm going to be shopping and making meals so consistently. I think I'll really like that aspect of.
Okay, we'll get back into some family dinners. Do you have a go-to? Like, do you have a casserole potluck dish that's your go-to that we need to break out this month?
I've been thinking of that. I got the ingredients already. Have you heard of? It's like strawberry Jello pretzel salad.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Heard of that? Yeah. So it's like a Midwestern dish.
My mother-in-law makes that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You like it?
Pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. So I got the ingredients. I hope they don't go bad.
Salty.
Yeah, by Sunday. So I feel like Jello, I think that kind of hits it. Not shopping on Sunday. I just usually Sunday is just kind of another weekend day, but I think there will be a sincere benefit to planning several days ahead to make sure that it's just a family day and it's a day that's set apart. I think my overlap, there's different ways where I still overlap with Mormonism. I'm like, there's definitely something there instead of just treating it like a second Saturday, that if I put some family time and intentionality towards that and family home evenings, yes, I think there's good stuff there. There's plenty of ways that I already feel very Mormon. I don't drink caffeine anymore, unless very rarely occasioned. Gave up smoking weed because I really think that there is something to in my metric. If I were to give you my philosophy of what I have found, I have journaled almost every single day continuously, every thought that's ever occurred to me for the last year. And what I have surmised and found from myself to be true is I am happiest when I am. So I think there's a Gandhi quote that's like, happiness derives from when your thoughts, feelings, and actions are all in alignment. And so when I lay my head down on my pillow and I'm like, did I live out my values as sincerely as I possibly could today? And noticing it throughout the day sooner, being self-regulated enough to choose and do better and choose my highest kind of self, my highest value, which would be like pausing and not yelling at my kids or something, things like that. And so throughout this journey, what I hope to find is deriving more values within this Mormon context and just kind of squeezing more of that juice out that I didn't quite know was there. Suckers, taking it and then hitting the road, not converting back. Yeah. So that's kind of what I found is I'm happiest when I am really intentionally aware of my values and when I'm living them and when I'm not. So
yeah, I am dying to see what your conclusions are going to be, because some of this you can anticipate, like, oh yeah, I liked this routine or tradition, it'll be nice to do this again or whatever. The thing that surprised me when I did theism for Lent, which is I'm just going to act for 30 days as if I believe in God, and I prayed and I read scripture, and it was more in a Christian context than a Mormon context. But the thing that surprised me the most is that I really found that I missed missed having that sense that someone else was watching you approvingly. So like, this sense that like when I did something good for someone else, that like someone saw, even if no one else saw or no one else validated, like someone's up there with a chalkboard being like, Britt did good on that one. And I didn't know that I liked that feeling, or I didn't know that that was even a feeling that I was experiencing until I did that experiment and realized that I missed that feeling that someone was like proud of me when I did good things. And so after the experiment, I actually made an intention, like my takeaway was I made an intentional effort to kind of like you said, like be that approving voice for yourself when you lay your head on the pillow of like, did I act according to my values and do the best I could today? And then as you were talking, it's like you were becoming that approving God for yourself. Totally. And I learned that through my kind of similar but not quite as immersive experience when I did that. But yeah, that's interesting.
Exactly. That's the same kind of concept that I have been taking with the last couple of videos and Substacks I've been writing about seeing Mormonism and religion as just a very sophisticated, like outsourced nervous system regulation machine. And not knowing that, like that is one of the most important things I wish I could have gone back and told myself or tell other people leaving the church, is how instrumental that system was. It's not just the beliefs in the community, like how much that pulled the rug out from under my feet. And instead of outsourcing that, so there's the approving aspect, which I love that you said that, but then also reassigning the responsibilities of regulating myself within myself, and knowing that it's within my nervous system, it's within my chest, and checking it with my own body, doing different practicing of like quick mindfulness exercises of when I check in and know that I'm dysregulated, where I totally did that when I was Mormon. I prayed at least 5 times a day when I was Mormon. I was constantly doing that. And just when I left the church, just bam, like suddenly I don't need that anymore. Like still, now 7 years later, I'm like back in that practice again of doing that as second nature now, of checking in how I'm feeling, how I'm doing. And instead of praying and being like, hey, I'm worried about this, God, I'm talking to myself and I'm asking myself all of those mindfulness techniques of like, how am I feeling? Where am I feeling it in my body? What's the truth of this? And, what actions do I want to take now? That's like the biggest piece of reclaiming like my autonomy and my sovereignty after Mormonism. It's not like the shoulders or the alcohol or the sex. It has nothing to do with that. It's reclaiming my nervous system.
Yeah. Psychological stability.
So I like what you said in conjunction with that, because the approval is all within myself, and you can't really approve of something if you don't know your values and you don't know what makes your life meaningful. So you can't just kind of float and, Plinko card your way through life for a while. You're a genius. You are amazing. Thank you. And we will plan our trip.
I'm so excited. So when does this Wednesday one, knees on the ground?
Sunday.
Okay.
Sunday at the Delta Center.
Okay. All right. I'll be thinking of you on Sunday.
Your initial feedback. I mean, you sent me a great voice message the other day after you read my article. It was really sweet and made me feel so loved and wholesome, and that I might be a good writer and I might be onto something with this project. You mentioned something that made me laugh really hard about how you were so disciplined on your mission. And if you could do that for a not true thing, imagine if you could do it for like a true thing. So, give me your initial feedback and thoughts about what you think of this project, just whatever comes to mind.
Yeah, I just really liked what you wrote. And I've been thinking about what you just said that I said recently, how I was able to be so disciplined. And even though I would not go on a mission again, I do think there were very good aspects to the mission that if I could discipline myself like I did then, or if I could just implement some of these things, then it could really benefit my life. Doing it not based off of fear, though. And that's the kind of crux of the situation for me. I feel like the reason it was so effective was because it was based in fear, and the fear is what got me to do those things. So it's like, how do I take away the fear but still implement things that are good from a good place, if that makes sense?
Yeah. So you are a deconstructed and ex-Mormon, but what do you think the church does really well that outsiders might underestimate?
Well, I think they do community, will help you with discipline through their fear, but like things that we had to do on the mission that I think I wish I could implement more of in my life was just disconnection from the online world. I think me and Casey were talking about this last night, and we're like, you know, on our missions, we lived kind of like it was the 80s. We didn't get on the computer at all. We weren't connected to people in like a hyper connected way. And it was really peaceful in some aspects to live that way, where you're not just bombarded by notifications all the time and a constant need to be plugged into a system. And it just helped us really focus on things that we felt were really important, and turning all those things off in some ways was just like relaxation for the brain. There's something really good about disconnecting from those things. And so finding a way to do that, not to the extreme we did, but yeah, I want to find a way to implement that more, and just like a bedtime, going to bed at the same time and waking up early and immediately taking time to study, do some personal reflection, and then just focusing on what is important to you. I think just being able to implement some of the things that are good from a mission would be really helpful in my life right now.
So I hear community aspects, community, discipline, and are there aspects of, like, for instance, family home evening? Like, I wish I had a reason to plan ahead and always do a Monday night activity with my kids that has like a lesson and a treat and a family outing, or the same way that we would spend 2 hours getting ready to go out at a set time every Sunday to go to church, having a set thing that we do that feels like we're connecting to something kind of holy and sacred to our family during that time period. Do you feel like you have pieces of that in your life right now, or that you're looking for pieces of that in your life?
No, I think I need a little more structure. And I was listening to this video essay. I can't remember who the person was, but they were talking about implementing ritual instead of resolutions into their new year. And I really liked that idea. And I realized when I left Mormonism, all my rituals were tied in Mormonism. And when I left, it's like almost like I ripped out my operating system, or all those rituals were taken away from me, and because they were painful to engage in, because they were tied in something that now felt heavy. And I want to find ways to implement rituals back into my life, because she talked about how rituals have a way of slowing down time, and you're not doing them to be better because you're not enough or something. You're doing them just to do them. And there's beauty and peace in the ritual. So yeah, I want to add more ritual back into my life, but figure out how to do that without religion.
Yeah, that's literally exactly what my secular spirituality class is all about. When you say ritual within Mormonism, like, what pops into your mind? Like, what rituals are you thinking of?
I mean, even what you were talking about, like having a set time every week to do family home evening, going to church, even like I would for a few years, I would just roll out of my bed and drop to my knees and pray every morning. And so like every morning prayer can be just setting your intentions for the day and reflecting on what you want to have happen, which I think is beautiful. I think, I really liked when you were talking in your Substack article about how Mormonism was like this kind of janky bridge, but it got you across, even though it needs some updates to its infrastructure. And there were things in Mormonism that helped me regulate myself emotionally, that helped me in hard times. And even though I look back now and there are things I want to change about it, just taking those away without replacing them with something else can be really difficult.
Yeah, same here, girlfriend. And speaking of prayer, I want to get your feedback on this one. So as I go through the rituals that I'll be diving into for this project, the first thing where I go, F word, no, I hate this idea. The first thing that I am really struggling with is the idea of praying to a male god. I don't know, might have a question, but that's just the first thing I'm struggling with.
I don't like that either. And I mean, there have been few times where I've I don't know if you would call it prayer, but done things like prayer. And I really struggle with that as well. But now I vision talking to my grandma who's passed, or even like connecting with my older self, because I really I've done some IFS therapy where you connect to your younger self. And I like the idea that my older self has overcome the problems that I'm facing right now. And so I can approach a prayer-like situation where I'm seeking advice from myself who has overcome or is in a place that I'm hoping to eventually be. So
yeah,
I don't know. That's weird to pray to yourself.
Yeah, no.
But
I wrote another Substack a couple of weeks ago in a video that I did about there's no atheists on whale watching boats. I don't know if you read that one. I made a video out of it too. But basically, I was like, the best thing that I've learned in my post-Mormonism is just you got to get blasphemous and see yourself as a god and see yourself as the source of all of that emotional regulation that you would normally outsource in prayer, that it can all be within your chest. It can all be within this vessel. So I totally get you on that it feels weird. It feels blasphemous, but the more you do it, the more normal it becomes. And then the more confidence you kind of gain in yourself. So I love that. I think that's a great idea. So I saw a TikTok last night that really got me going. And it was basically a Christian girl saying, hey, non-Christians, what do you have to lose by coming to church with me on Sunday? What do you have to lose by going to my Christmas Eve celebration at my church, And there was different Christian response, ex-Christian kind of responses to that of what do I have to lose? I'd have to lose my integrity first. But as an ex-Mormon, the thing that kind of triggered me about that was the proposition of Mormonism and other religions too, is just more intense, and you actually have more to lose, and maybe you have something to gain. But in Mormonism, because of the centering on eternal families, family to me in Mormonism is the carrot on the stick. It's kind of more of the central savior-like, Christ-like figure than Christ himself, that is the thing that you're working towards, is to stay together as a family. That's what's told to you about, getting married in the temple one day, keep your covenants, have your kids keep your covenants so you can all be together. You can be having your kingdoms in heaven together and so on. And so what you have to lose is kind of everything. You have to lose the psychological framework that can be ripped out from you, but also you have a lot to lose by believing in what you're sold about eternal families and then having it being ripped away. So from your perspective, if a Mormon person, a missionary, is propositioning somebody to get baptized and they go down that road, what do you think is the cost benefit analysis. What do people have to lose versus what do they have to gain?
I think it depends where you're at in life. I think for some people, Mormon that are in a worse situation, Mormonism can provide structure and rules that maybe their life really needs and could benefit from. But in my case, I feel like the things I would have to lose would be, one, my peace, because I don't feel comfortable there. But two, right now I think about, okay, well, if I'm going to that thing, I'm also bringing my children or my child there. And what I have to lose is him being taught things that I think are potentially harmful and are harmful to a lot of people, especially the LGBTQ community. And I just think the harm that's done psychologically does not justify the benefits, at least from my experience.
I mean, obviously, I agree wholeheartedly. Like, those things just, they seem so man-made, and they seem so obviously born out of American evangelicalism and Protestantism, and you can kind of go back and see why we have the rules within Mormonism that we have, but they are rules nonetheless. And so it's kind of a catch-22, that so much of the rules and the structure, who you're praying to, the rituals that you're doing, the things that Mormonism provides the community, also that container, if you're unable to fit within that and you disagree with, their ideas around gender norms and families and homosexuality, those rules, if you disagree with them and you see the harm that they cause, that now you have to distance yourself from the rituals and all of the good things that they provide, which I think is just, that's the crux of, the problems of having a Mormon faith crisis, is there is something good within that, but it's also got like a poisoned well dynamic. So you're trying to separate, part of this project is trying to separate, yes, those rituals and those habits and that authority that Mormonism provides, to recentering those internally without the harm that's being caused. And hopefully a way that other Mormons could possibly model and become less orthodox in their belief. Does that make sense?
I think people are becoming increasingly less orthodox. Who are the type of people you think could thrive in Mormonism, and who are the type of people that can't? I think the people who are scrupulous and are take things very literally and have grown up within a church that was very literal, and now it's softening. Like, it was, when you find out the things that you may come to find out, it just makes it an all or nothing decision. But if you can live and grow up in this kind of softening of Mormonism, where there is more of a gray area and people are okay being cafeteria Mormons and are accepted and can maybe even go to the temple or what have you. I think if you can live without being fully consumed by the rules, then I think that's the type of person who could thrive.
Yeah. As opposed to, like you said, the OCD, scrupulous type of people, where their OCD and their rituals are just manifested within a religious dynamic and sphere. That the way in which that they kind of reiterate their mental illness to themselves is through these religious underpinnings and rituals that they're doing, as opposed to having a widened lens, something that is more loving, more forgiving. But yeah, there are just certain personality types that'll probably never go away. Have you heard the saying, let me see who says this. Maybe John DeLynn told me this once, but there's like this pendulum theory where you're always kind of swinging from one pendulum of chaos to disorder. Maybe it was Britt Hartley. Where human beings and society, sometimes they go from chaos to order back and forth. And so a lot of people who have a lot of chaos in their life, they're going to swing into order. And that's finding the Mormon missionaries and converting. Like my parents come from a lot of disorder. And then people like us who come from a lot of order within Mormonism, sometimes we swing and then we go off into the other deep end of the wild, wild west of the world, and try various other things. But like, can we ever just kind of swing the pendulum in the middle without having the two extremes? It's kind of one of the questions that I'm going to be wrestling with.
Yeah, that's a good description. I totally see that. And yeah, I want to fall here. So you're starting the first 30 days, you're going to actually do the Mormon stuff. And then the second 30 days, you're going to switch in things you like better. Like
right. So instead of rolling out of bed and praying every morning, I'm going to be rolling out of bed and probably praying to myself. I'm going to experiment with what kind of ritual in the morning feels best and most authentic to myself, reading from the best books and the best experts of what they have to say, and then finding what rings true to me. So taking those rituals and then, each day experimenting with them. Because I was just talking to Eric Moutsos, and he was really helpful in my Instagram when I was first posted my video. He said, okay, well, if you're praying every day, make sure to pray for who needs help and try to repent of things that are weighing on you, and think of Jesus' atonement, which I'm going to struggle on that one because I've deconstructed blood atonement far too much. Like, God needs payment in blood for our very normative, sinful behavior as humans. I'll put it that way. But in terms of getting out of bed and getting on my knees and setting an intention of who to help that day and what's weighing on me and how I can combat that and what systems, mechanisms within me, what kind of themes of consciousness I can employ to better live my life as a mom and as a woman in this crazy world. Like, I'm really excited for that. And then there's going to be scripture study that I'll replace with, if every night I was reading it for 20 minutes during my 30 days, I'm going to read something else that feels more spiritually true to me. Or I don't drink caffeine anymore. I really don't drink coffee. I could live without alcohol for the rest of my life. So there's certain aspects that I'll probably be talking about in the following 30 days of stuff of like, yeah, I really like that. And I do think alcohol is really unhealthy, and we would be better if we all didn't drink it, but it shouldn't make you, if you do, it shouldn't make you feel like you couldn't be with your family together again, kind of things. It should come at you from a place of, I want to have the healthiest body. So like, I used to vape and I used to smoke weed. Now, if I do weed, I only do edibles because I made that conscious decision because I really like playing flag football now. And I can tell the difference in my lungs and in my body when I can run and not be weary. I'm like, oh, Mormonism has a point on that. Like, I want to be more conscientious about what I put in my body because I do want it to last me a long time. So I'll be taking all that different stuff, paying tithing of like the intention of setting money aside to help somebody else that's less fortunate than me. So stuff like that, the Sabbath day, keeping it holy. What does that mean to me? Is it just another weekend day, or am I going to do something intentional with my family to bond us, to set, like kind of reset for the week?
But you're going to go to church for 30 days?
I'm going to church. I'm going to church on Sunday to my home ward in Provo, Utah, with my parents. Are you
going with your parents?
I'm going with my parents to their delight.
Okay. Are you nervous?
I'm honestly not nervous at all. The only thing I'm nervous about is if people recognize me in my home ward, because I love. I don't know about you, but like, I love the people who raised me in my ward. I could go back and just be like, hey, what's going on? They were in my temple ceiling, like just my friends' moms who were all my young women's growing up that I love to see. There's only a handful of people left, though. My parents told me a lot of people have moved in and out in the 20 years since I have pretty much lived at home. But I'm most nervous that if somebody recognizes me from my ex-Mormon work and thinks that I'm there to be combative or like cause a scene, which I'm totally not there to do. So I'm just worried about getting stared at, which I can handle. And I don't think I'm worried about pretty much anything else. I'm excited to sing the hymns. I'm kind of excited to make my mom happy in a way. Like, she's really excited for me to go with her, because I think in her mind, this is what she's always been wishing for and wanting is like, oh, she's finally like taking me up on this offer, you know? She's going to feel the spirit and she's going to come back to church. I'm hoping my mom doesn't have her hopes up in that way. But overall, yeah, I don't know. What else should I be worried about?
I don't know. I think just the family dynamics would be the thing I'd be most nervous for. Yeah, like family getting their hopes up, but they're adults. They can handle it.
Yeah, well, you're lovely and you're wonderful, and people are going to be so excited to see your face on this project. Thanks for agreeing to talk with me today.
Yeah. When do you start? Monday?
Sunday. Yeah.
I guess that makes sense. Church.
Yep. I am going to have to not have sex for 30 days too, and not masturbate.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good luck.
So, yeah.
Are you going to confess to your bishop when you mess up?
I need to put another thing on my plate. I'll see. I'm going to find somebody to confess to. My goal is the same as it was when I was a teenager. Just don't freaking mess up so that you have to go through that. You're used to it, right?
Crazy to me, though, because if you were actually LDS and 36 years old and you were just living your adult life, you
mind-blowing.
would have to go into an old man's, or maybe even our age man's office and tell him what you did, and he could ask you whatever the heck he wants. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. That's gross.
That's so weird. Okay, I'll let you go. You're the best.
Bye.
All right, Shaun, give me a little synopsis. Give me the rundown.
Yeah. So right now I'm a philosophy professor at Iona University, which is like north of Manhattan in New York. And I have been focusing on the philosophy of sex and love, and especially with issues of sex education and consent and other issues that revolving around autonomy. And mostly I'm just really passionate about what does it mean to be involved with someone sexually, romantically, or missing any of those elements. And as a philosopher, it's something that I delve into the deeper questions that a lot of people just don't really pay attention to. But that's what I'm passionate about. That's what I'm into. That's what I love doing.
So just off the top of your head, whatever you can remember, just kind of what has come to mind, what stood out to you, what do you think will come of this? Just what are your overall impressions?
I think it's an interesting idea. I mean, as you mentioned in the Substack, it's very similar to what Morgan Spurlock did in Super Size Me. And the way that Spurlock did it is that he was trying to see if McDonald's was healthy or not, and just trying to test that out with eating only McDonald's food. And just reading off your Substack, you're undergoing this project in order to see if you can have those somatic feels of those, I guess, dopamine hits, or that feeling of solidarity or belonging or some sort of connection without necessarily taking on the beliefs of the doctrines. I think that's an interesting approach. I never thought of it that way before. When I was reading through it, some questions I had were, is it possible to have those feels, that dopamine hit, or that somatic nervous system kind of being aligned, or knowing in the back of your mind, this isn't real, this isn't true? I've never engaged in something like that before, so I don't know. But I'm just wondering if that's even possible. It could be. So that's why I was just intrigued and curious about your project, about if you can gain that bodily sensation, knowing, or maybe in the back of your mind, this isn't true, this isn't real. That was one big thing that just came out in my mind. Yeah. A lot of research I've seen is that when people leave major systems, they leave first behaviorally before they can leave them ideologically. And so the belief change often follows life restructuring, and typically not the other way around. And so you have to rearrange your life first, and then all of a sudden the beliefs kind of follow afterwards, right? So de-radicalization works by meeting those needs elsewhere. And then once those needs are met, then the belief just kind of follows through. It's a reversal of what people think of how leaving a system works. It's like, oh, all of a sudden I don't believe it, therefore I can just kind of discard it, right? But typically that's not how it works. It's more like your habits and your livelihood and your somatic fields have to start at that new place first, and then beliefs just kind of follow afterwards. So from what I know, and just little what I know about how brain programming works and just how the mind works, is the whole body has to follow through, and then the mind, especially in this sort of project, the mind follows after.
So that's another. I have a good follow up to that. Then I have another friend who's a professor, and he recommended to me that I really try to dive in and not analyze myself, at least in the first few days, because I haven't even started yet, and I'm already thinking about the things that are going to come up and what my analysis is going to be. So what would your recommendation be of how I can, because I'm pretty good at programming myself, to be honest. I'm pretty good at controlling my thoughts and following through with what I need to do. So ideally speaking, to go through this kind of social experiment, how do you think I should commit to the bit, basically? How should I be not self-analyzing as much as I can, and just spend the first week fully living as a Mormon? What are your thoughts?
I think there's going to be some moments where you can't help but analyzing, just because now you're almost like an outsider looking in. So it's almost like you're an anthropologist at first. And then once you're going to be fully engaged, I'm curious about whether through, let's say, day 15, day 16, there's going to be moments where you're going to be so fully engaged, you're going to be so into the flow of things. And then once you're done, and then you have time to like analyze it, you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about how I was looking at it from the outsider. I was fully immersed when I did that. And then that's when the analysis will kick in. So I think at first you will overanalyze. But then over time, I think once you get into the flow of things, and if you just kind of let yourself go into the rituals, into the patterns of Mormonism, then once you leave that flow state, then your analysis might kick in afterwards. It's an interesting process because when people typically leave a big system, a lot of people say, or at least recommend, don't go back in. But you're going back in, and I guess it's similar to like a post-rehab synthesis. It's a way to use what leaving taught you, right? And I think over-analysis is something that you just can't help, but I think you'll be surprised, maybe you won't, that you'll have less analyzing as you continue on.
Okay, good answer. In my 7 years out of the church, I had to do a lot of firsts. Breaking codependence from a man, from my ex-husband, from the codependence from my family, and this externalized source of regulation in prayer through a male-centered God, I've had to do a lot of firsts and break a lot of those patterns that I feel like I'm in a good place now, where people like my parents might proposition me to come to church with them, hoping that I have something to gain and that I will return to the fold, you know? I just don't see that besides a lot of the rituals and maybe the community that Mormonism offers, I don't feel like the proposition of religion outweighs the harms, for me at least, but it might for other people. So from your perspective, religions like Mormonism, from what you know of it, what do you think the risks are of the average person taking the missionaries up on their offer to be baptized and go into the church and live out their covenants, go through the temple, do all of the things in Mormonism that I'll be doing for the next 30 days? What do you think the average person has to lose by going through that kind of process, by actually committing and converting to the church?
Okay. So I have a particular position when it comes to autonomy. My view of autonomy is not so much about choices and decisions. It's more about, do you have cognitive capabilities, or specifically cognitive skills, and using those skills to help you decipher not only what decision to do, but which decision is going to be the best outcome for you. So I've known you for a while, Kara, and I would say that you have high cognitive skills. I mean, just your instincts are very aligned. You know that there's some risk to this, but your self-awareness is pretty strong, and it's a very experimental project. Where I know you survived this project, and so the risk for you, I don't think is going to be that high, just because you have strong cognitive skills, meaning in my mind, you have strong autonomy to decipher of what's going on. For an average person, it's hard to say if an average person has high cognitive skills or not. Especially if missionaries come to them and show them, well, this is what it is, and then all of a sudden the person decides to go, or immediately converts. I would say that if a person just immediately converts then and there, I'd want to question, well, why did you just convert immediately? Is it because the cognitive skills were low, or was there something else that was going on that made you feel like I've got to convert in some way? Maybe they're seeking a community and this is the way they're doing it. If they are squeamish at first, but then they go, and then over time, because their body goes and over time their beliefs follow through, that's more acceptable to me, because then all of a sudden their beliefs caught up with them. And if their autonomy drops through the conversion, I have some issues with that, just because that means that their cognitive skills and their autonomy is lowered. But if you could just somehow measure the cognitive skills are the same and their autonomy, meaning that is also the same, then to me, that is not a problem, just because the autonomy is roughly the same. So to give you the shorter answer to this, I think your autonomy and your cognitive skills will be the same after leaving this. For the average person, it's hard to tell. It's hard to
tell. When there's I don't know if you use this kind of verbiage, but in the ex-Mormon circles, we call it elevated emotion when we look back at the times that we were bearing our testimony in a group or singing hymns together, that the spirit that we believed that we were feeling that testified that it was true was actually just an elevated emotion that's really common amongst any Homo sapien who's gathering in a circle to feel community and have a common myth and share some meaning with each other. And so, yeah, what I got from what you were saying is the average person might not know how our brains work and how instinctual that does meaning making and myth making, that our brains just can kind of go wild, and we can be subdued into believing a narrative if we can have that drug hit of that elevated emotion again and again by coming back to church and being with those people. It doesn't mean that it's true. It just means that we're kind of living out this human instinct for this feeling in this community.
Exactly. Yeah. And maybe the people think that they're autonomous, but it's just the emotional uptake and the meaning that's bending into them that makes them feel like, this is now coming into terms of who I really am, when really it's just community gathering.
Yeah. People who are more prone to authoritarian type personalities or OCD, what do you think the cost benefit analysis is kind of like for people who put themselves in a really stringent religion like Mormonism? Does that make sense?
Yeah. You're asking about what's the risk behind it?
Yeah.
The risk is
Benefits,
risk and benefits. Yeah. I think if you have a person who is someone whose autonomy is resigned to a group, then I guess it depends on how invested they are into that group. If they're just fully invested into a group and just say my autonomy is yielded to that group, that I would be suspicious and maybe even see that as really dangerous, because it feels very cultish to me, where they will do anything that the group says or anything that the leader says just because they're the leader. And that's what the leader says. And I believe in the leader and I believe in the prospects of what this group is saying. And so I'm just going to go along with that. And so their autonomy is just declined. They're not even thinking through the whole process. They're not even going through the whole aspects of, should I be doing this? So not only autonomy is gone, morality is diminished. Any sort of independent thinking is gone. That's a huge, huge risk. I mean, if you want to look at a benefit with that, I guess the benefit is they have something, which is they have a direction, they have an alignment. But it's such a huge cost where the alignment is and the direction is just towards this person. So that's more of the extreme type. But then you have others who, some sense of autonomy is still attached to them, where they can think things through. And I've met lots of people who are religious and they still have skeptical claims about whether I should follow this leader or not in these certain patterns or whatever they say. It's interesting because a lot of people find them, if you're not going to follow the leader, aren't you being hypocritical? Or aren't you just not, a true Mormon or not? Fine, that's fair. But at the same time, I want to say, but at least they're thinking things through. At least they have a sense of, I guess, but I'm my own person beyond what my Mormon identity tells me. So those types of people, they may not be authentic Mormons. They may not be true to whatever the word is saying, but at least they have some semblance of who they are outside of the church. And I find that much more of a reasonable position than the full, I'm going to diminish my autonomy sort of person.
Great. Love that. That's such a good answer. Since you have a background in things to do with sexuality, very important question for you. I am committing to no masturbation and no sex the next 30 days as well.
30 days.
When I was Mormon, I was still masturbating. I still wasn't telling anybody about it, but this is going to be the longest stretch of true celibacy that I've had in a very, very long time, since truly puberty. So from your perspective, what are some healthy coping mechanisms or healthy outlets instead of what I would normally just do? What would you recommend I do instead? Mormonism would tell me to read my scriptures, but what would you say?
Yeah, so there's two things that you could do, just from what I've read. One is distractions. So, you could read the scriptures if you want, but that's one way to do it. I don't blame you. I think the other is just constant distractions, even if it means picking up a new hobby. I mean, there's only so much TV and movies you could do, but the distractions have to be more active. Like TV, movies, you're just passively participating, right? You're just watching and consuming things. But if you're actively doing something, then you're just distracted. That's one thing. The other, and it depends on who you are because this can backfire. The other type is a lot of evidence shows that the more stressed you are, then your libido goes down. But there's a catch-all. There are some people, and I have no idea if you're the type of person, there are some people out there that the more stressed they are, their libido actually goes up. So it comes down to if you're that type of person where stress makes your libido go down or up. And I don't know a measurement or a test to decipher that. I think it's just more like, am I that type of person where my libido goes up or down during stressful moments?
It's whenever my Adderall is peaking, usually around noon every day, when I finish my first chunk of work for the day and I have to start my second chunk, and it's about noon every day, and I'm like, well, I just need a reward. I need to clear my head, and I'm usually like, no one's home. Get that out of my system for a minute. 90 seconds later, we're back on track. But I guess if I'm going to be committing to being Mormon for 30 days, I'm going to have to just do the Mormon thing and read my scriptures or go work out, or take care of my body, go bake something, go bake a casserole and give it to somebody.
Yeah. I mean, if you know that noontime is self-care time, like, purposely invite a friend over so that you have to like engage with them instead of with yourself.
Great advice. Hope that doesn't end badly.
Right.
Trying to play it cool right now, that's, I think a lot of things around patriarchy, gender norms, and my own like personal autonomy to not being able to be expressive with the clothes I want to wear or my own sexuality. It's not triggering me now, but I know that it will eventually, because I'm already struggling with the idea of praying to a male god. Makes me want to just like flip over a table. Any thoughts there?
I think when you're back in that space and then you're just going to immediately feel these gender dynamics hard, you'll see, the men and women separated into their different classes or different spheres. And then the men take charge and the women are just, subservient. I think by going back in, I think you're going to notice more of these gender dynamics much more forcefully now that you're seeing it from the outside. So gender is going to be the main thing you're going to be thinking about, I think. I think sexuality is going to be like an indirect thing, because as soon as you see these differences with the men and the women, I think you'll be thinking, oh, well, what would sexuality look like given that? And it's like, oh, I don't want to do that sort of lifestyle. I've been there, and so it's just not that great. So it's going to be more of an indirect reach, indirect thoughts that's going to hit you rather than directly.
Good perspective.
I think.
All right. We shall see. Maybe I'll just be like, I love being a sub. I love submissiveness. This is what I was raised for, and I'm just going back to my roots or something.
Going back to it.
All right. Well, my son just got here, so unfortunately I have to run. But thank you so much, man.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime.
So enlightening.
Eric, what is your background? Just tell me who you are, what your beliefs are.
I am that I am. I am like, so I care about truth, number one. Grew up in Utah, grew up in Taylorsville, became a police officer, quickly saw that was super political, got out of that. And ever since then, I've just been, just trying to wake people up to this kind of beast.
We first met at the Fair Mormon, no, not Fair Mormon, the Firm Foundation conference. I
remember that very vividly.
Oh, what do you remember?
I don't know. I was like, I was seeing you kind of like talking to these people. I'm like, what is it? It seemed like there was kind of a feud or something. And then when I was talking to you, I recognized you and I was like, oh, this is that girl from the John DeLen stuff. But I liked you. Like I liked your, you weren't coming off like super combative. I felt like you had a good spirit about you. So, well, I love to talk to people that are like, that have like, even though you believe what you believe, I love to talk to people that have a spirit about them that like at the end of the day, we're all humans.
Right.
And like, that's what matters the most. And so, yeah, we can have these wildly different, like I saw Greg Mattson on John DeLynne's podcast, and I thought they had a great interview.
Yeah, they did.
And so I think these conversations are like super important for no matter what. It's really good for, even if we like wildly disagree on like what God is and does he have a church, does he not? We should be neighbors, and we should be able to. Some of my best friends are atheists. Some of my best friends on the police department were atheists, and they were some of the best people that I knew. So when I saw that you were doing this, I just think, to me, anytime you're connecting to a higher power, you're going to get something out of it. I just know that. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you know, what's on your list? You're doing scripture study. What else are you doing?
So waking up and praying on my knees, which I added to that, what you said on Instagram, pray for, you know, who to help, repent of anything weighing on me, think of Jesus' atonement. On that one specifically, I'll put a pin in that. I'll come back to it. Scripture study every day, dressing modestly. I do have some garments. I don't know if I should wear them or not. Do you think that is too sacrilegious?
I'm not even going to comment on that. I don't want to tell you what to do.
Okay.
With your underwear.
Okay. Finally, keeping my thoughts clean and heterosexual. No swearing. No porn, masturbation, or sexual activity.
Wow.
No coffee, tea, alcohol. Fast on the first Sunday, Monday, family home evenings. Confess to a man if I mess up. Visit someone and bring goodies. Listen to conference talks, church music, sing hymns. Make my hair blonder, fake lashes, spray tan. So, you know, dropping by swig now and then, stuff like that. Paying my tithing, to be determined where I want to pay my tithing to. Stroll around the temple grounds, which no shopping on Sunday. I just got invited to play volleyball on Sunday and I had to turn them down. So I am still trying to keep within that framework of keeping the Sabbath day holy. Do as many service projects as I can, pray and bless my food. Cook a lot more at home like I was when I was a trad wife in the church, hanging up pictures of Jesus in my house. A big one is if I bear my testimony in church, that would be a big one. Going to church, obviously, no drugs or weed. That's a little toughy, but I can do it. Get a calling, kind of prepare a lesson. I'll probably just be more involved in my kids' Girl Scouts, something that feels like a calling. No lying. So honest dealings with my fellow man, clean entertainment, movies, music, feed the missionaries once this month, do some genealogy. Another one is go on a date with a Mormon man. Not excited for that, but I feel like that would really clinch it.
I'll set you up.
Okay, set me up. Find me an anti-Zionist, and we'll have something to talk about. And then by the end of the month, be able to give myself a Temple Recommend interview and see how I do. So that's my list. But from your perspective, do people have anything to lose? Is it like a great opportunity for everybody to join the church?
Well, I think, yeah, that's a good question. I think ultimately God's going to give you what you want. And so do I think you're going to lose your family? No, it's kind of like on earth. I truly believe that the greatest blessing and sometimes the hardest, heartache is your children, right? And so when it comes to family, like the order, in my opinion, the order of heaven is family. So depending on the glory that you want, you know how you hear the kingdoms, the different kingdoms? I really think that a lot of that has to do with the size of your family. Like, do you want to continue to have children? Like, if you die and you are in fact resurrected, are your organs still going to work? And so I believe God is going to be like, hey, now what do you want? Well, I want to have kids. Okay. I really think it's going to be like this. So this is what that kingdom is. You talk about a celestial kingdom. I think that's where kings and queens are. And when I say kings and queens, I just mean father and mother. Like, there's never going to come a time when your children are not going to call you mother. So then do you want to keep that going? So I don't know. I just have never looked at it like, this, if you don't do this, then you don't get this. Because I think that's a lot of parental stuff, like parents just maybe not understanding the love of God so much. And then now this fear, because I get it when I see some people that their parents, I had my best friend growing up, and their parents were just boom. They would hammer them so hard with the church thing to where they just left. My parents were different. They like really let me kind of go off, and I was kind of a rebel all throughout high school. And then I slowly just chose, like, hey, I don't want to live that party world. I don't want to do that. I don't feel good, if I consume things that are bad for your body. I just don't feel good. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but I don't think God is just waiting to punish with that. He's wanting to give us everything that he has, and he wants us to become like him. And so there's just certain house rules in heaven.
Right. But what I heard in that is that within this framework of the LDS religion, people who have more, let's say, authoritarian streaks within them, they can use all of these teachings, all these things that to some are a beautiful gift. They can use them to beat their children into submission.
Yes, that does happen, unfortunately.
Right. So there's the things that are. So let me ask you this last question, and I'll let you go. But love to talk to you again another time. The thing that is the first thing that I struggle with is the idea of praying to a man. Going back to the other thing you said about like my kids will always call me mother. I believe more that if there is something after this life, it would be more akin to we are all energy and spirits in some kind of way having mortal experiences. And like my mom is a fellow traveler, and she's role playing as my mom in this earthly life. Mm-hmm. And we get to figure out our triggers and our dynamics in this kind of role play. But if the world was to end and we all move on to a different kind of plane, we would just be, in a similar cohort, but we're not going to be in that kind of role, mother-daughter. So when I think of who I'm praying to, the idea of centralizing that into a male figure doesn't make any sense to me. So you tell me your thoughts and how I might proceed.
I don't know. I would just look at it like if we do have a Father in heaven, just how much he loves you, and the exact order, like Jesus said, pray to the Father. I'm sure there's something to it, Well, I know there's something to it, but with you, I would just look to a being that has your very, very, very best interests in mind. Mm-hmm. And he loves you so much, and he wants to. Have you seen Interstellar, where like, oh yeah, Matthew McConaughey's talking, like his kids, those messages are coming through.
Yeah.
And like just sometimes he's like, oh, there they are, and he's like, I'm here, Dad. I don't know if you're there listening, but I'm here. And so, and Matthew McConaughey's just crying. I really think that's like our Father in heaven, when he finally gets us to communicate, he's just so ecstatic that we are trying.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I'd love to talk to you more, but we'll leave it there for now. All right. I think that's it.
Thank you, Kara.
No, thanks, Eric. Appreciate you. I was going to have you bury your testimony, but we'll see. Wait, get out your guitar one more time.
Help me find the way. Teach me all that I must do to live with him someday.
Okay, we did it. We're all one. We are all one.
Don't we have fun? If you enjoyed that, consider donating to this channel. I am primarily donor funded. And if you want to support the work that I'm doing and this kind of research as I'm filming this series, you can do that through Patreon. I have a Timmy Did What Patreon. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the Nuancehoe Patreon for this content. So there's Patreon, there's Donor Box and Venmo, or tipping here on YouTube. that support directly funds the time and space that's really required to do big projects like this really thoughtfully and honestly. I'm going to be a trad wife for the next 30 days and I'm not allowed to work, basically. So if I check my bank account and there's more donations in there, I'm succeeding on the project. So I just got to put that out there. I just got to ask. I just got back from church and I can't wait to tell y'all what that experience was like. So please make sure that you are subscribed to the channel, and episode 1 should be dropping about in a week. I'm trying my best to not analyze as I go. So I'm going to stretch it out and try to do recaps on about a weekly basis. So you guys are really not going to want to miss this. I'm really excited about what's to come. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks so much for being here. And I will see y'all in the next chapter of Mormonize Me. Bye, everybody.